Welcome to the Mindset module, How to Have an Unbeatable Mind. Thank you for joining me on this journey and for giving yourself the opportunity to better yourself. In this course, you'll learn how to navigate the inevitable challenges that come up, how to use fear and problems to your advantage, and how to get your mind, your thoughts, your beliefs on your side, and how to back yourself up. So with that having been said, let's jump right into it. So the first winning belief that you want to adopt is an abundance mindset. I don't compete, I create. Now think about this for a second. There are over 9 billion people on this planet. Over 9 billion people. That means that there's more than enough for everybody. There's more than enough potential clients for everybody. Just because somebody out there is doing something similar to what it is that you are doing or what you want to do, it doesn't mean that you can't then do that thing. Remember that we're all different, and that's a good thing. That means that whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to bring your own beliefs, you're bringing in your personality, you're bringing in your history, you're bringing in your education, you're bringing all these different unique aspects that make up you. And as a result of that, your voice, your approach is going to be different from somebody else's approach, even if they're doing something that you want to do. And because there's 9 billion people out there, that means that there's somebody out there, there's a group of people, there's a tribe, there's a community that needs your voice and your approach in terms of what it is that you want to do. You know, sometimes you can hear a message many different times, but hearing a message said at the right time in a specific way by somebody can just bring that thing home for you. And I'm sure you've had this experience before. So it's not that we're all mimicking each other and we're all copying each other. Your voice, your approach, your beliefs, your personality, all those things shine through, and it comes across in your approach when you give your offer and you put your offer out there. And that's what's needed. So remember, you don't have to compete with anyone. You can create your own lane. You can chart your own course. So you don't have to compete, you create. Hold that abundance mindset. The second winning belief is, I only work with people who are a good fit for me. Now, what happens if you work with people that are a bad fit for you? Nobody walks away having benefited in any kind of way. They're going to walk away from that situation and say, wow, that was a waste of time. That was a waste of money. I should have done that. This person is useless. They didn't meet my needs. There was no change in my life. There was no impact. I didn't receive any kind of service from that situation. And you're also not going to be satisfied because you're not going to have met the person's needs. You're not going to have put your best self forward. You're not going to have made an impact in anyone's life. And you'll be dissatisfied from that situation. You don't have a raving fan. So you don't want to work with the people who are a bad fit for you, because that's a lose-lose situation. You want a win-win situation where you walk away from that saying, wow, this person's life has changed and I'm energized by that and I've made an impact, and they're walking away from that saying, yes, this person understands me, they get me. I'm going to tell everybody about that situation, about this experience that I've had with them. And the way that you find out if a person is a good fit for you is simply looking firstly at, can you solve their problem? Is what you're offering going to actually solve their problem? If it's not, then you can tell them upfront and maybe refer them to somebody else who might be a better fit for them. But you're only going to work with clients where you know that you can actually solve their problem. And the second thing is that you want to have a very clear idea of who your ideal client is, so that you can know upfront whether or not you can work with the person who wants to work with you. And finally, you also want to look at the person's values, their energy. Is this something that's complementary? Is this person motivated to work with you? Are they going to put the work in? Are they going to follow through, or are they expecting you to do all the heavy lifting? So look if you can solve their problem, have a clear idea of who it is that you want to work with, and make sure that their values are a good match for you. Their values don't have to match yours. They just have to be complementary. You want to make sure that it's a situation where they're not draining you and you're not draining them. You're working together and you're both benefiting from that situation. And the third winning belief is, I know my why. I have a strong mission and sense of purpose. Now, meaning helps you to navigate uncertainty. When we have no purpose, we have no drive. And when we have a weak purpose, then our drive is also weak. It's only when you've got a strong purpose that you're able to move heaven and earth. Have you ever had a situation where you failed at doing something, a failed attempt at maybe quitting a habit, or there's something you wanted to get and you didn't actually follow through and get that thing? Now, chances are you didn't really want it that badly, or you would have achieved it. Now, granted, there are circumstances beyond our control, but the funny thing is that even those circumstances, those situations, they can also be overcome. When you've got a strong enough reason on the inside, it's almost like there's nothing on the outside that can stop you. And, Tony Robbins always says that reasons come first and then answers come second. If you've got a strong enough reason why you want to do something, the answers, the how of how to actually do that thing will then come to you. But it's the reasons first, the purpose first, and then the how comes out of that, not the other way around. So you want to have a very strong purpose, because that will help you to navigate the uncertainty. That will help you to push forward when times are hard, because times do get hard. Sometimes you get overwhelmed, or it feels like the problems are too much, or you might not have a clear idea of what you need to do next. But if you've got a strong meaning and purpose, it can help serve as fuel. It can help act as the wind in your sails that helps you to keep moving forward. So one way of doing this is to actually make a mission statement. You write out a mission statement of what it is that you want to do, the impact that you want to make in the lives of others, and the change that's going to make in your life as well. And know the benefits of those things. What will the benefits be? Spiritually, financially, in your relationships, socially, everything. Have a clear idea of the benefits of what it is that you're trying to do. And also list out your values, your stand. These are the principles by which I stand by, because all these things will act as a compass when you're navigating through those uncharted waters, when you're navigating through the challenges and the uncertainty. Having a strong sense of purpose and direction help you clearly see the way forward. So have a strong sense of why it is that you're doing what you're doing. Otherwise, what ends up happening is you start to question yourself. Should I be doing this thing? Is it worthwhile? Is it worth taking the risk? Should I try and do something different? When you've got that strong why within you, you don't need someone, or you don't need to even have a fire lit under you, because you're always lit up. You're always moving. You've got that passion that keeps you moving forward. And this leads in very nicely to the fourth winning belief, which is, I accept all problems and setbacks as a necessary part of the process. I accept all problems and setbacks as a necessary part of the process. When you're trying to do something that is worthwhile, or something that you've never done before, there's a lot of unknowns there. And one of the unknowns that usually comes without warning is problems, challenges, setbacks. And, when we go into a situation, go into a project, or go into when you're trying to start a new business and put your offer out there into the world, because you're doing something that's new and something that's maybe unfamiliar to you, it's hard to know in advance exactly what the problems are going to be, what form they're going to come in, how long they're going to last for, all those things. And if you go into that situation not anticipating or expecting the problems to come, when they do come, you'll be caught off guard. You'll be like a deer caught in the headlights. You'll be shocked, like, oh my goodness, I didn't expect this thing to happen. You're sideswiped, Whereas when you expect that it's not just going to happen, but it's a necessary part of the process, it doesn't make them go away, but what does happen is that you're not caught off guard. You're anticipating it. You're in a situation where you can actually not just expect it, but you can learn from it. You can use it. Because the truth of the matter is this: if you're doing something worthwhile, and by worthwhile, I mean worthwhile to you, it doesn't have to be anything that people are cheerleading you on and pushing you forward. If you're doing anything that's worthwhile and you're not experiencing any mistakes, there are no challenges, there's no failure or anything, chances are you're not trying hard enough. You're not pushing the envelope. You're not challenging yourself. Because when you challenge yourself and you're putting yourself out there and you're pushing the envelope, you're going to experience mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to experience failure. And all these things are an opportunity for us to learn. So don't look at it as, oh, I'm facing a problem, I'm doing the wrong thing. No, it's the right thing. If you're facing a problem, it means that you're on the right path. So expect them and know that when they do come, it's not a bad thing. It means that you're on the right path and it's a part of the process. It's a part of the process. And this leads very nicely into the fifth winning belief, which is I grow bigger, not in spite of the challenge, but because of it. I grow bigger, not in spite of the challenge, but because of it. There's this cool story by Robert Kiyosaki, who is the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he talks about how when he started his first business, things started going very well, and he made about $1 million from this business. And then things took a turn, things changed, and very quickly he found himself about $1 million in debt. And he was wondering, should I pay off this? How can I pay this debt off? Should I declare bankruptcy? Should I go and get a 9-to-5 job and try and pay it off? Like, what are my options? And he thought to himself, if I go and I get myself a 9-to-5 job and I'm earning roughly about $100,000, which is around the upper limits of what he could have earned at the time. If he was lucky and he got himself a job that paid him $100,000 a year, he actually worked out that he'd never be able to pay that debt off. He wouldn't pay off the $1 million at all. Why? Because think about it. He's going to pay taxes on the $100,000 and he's got living expenses to cover. In addition to that, this $1 million is also, it's accruing interest over time. So he just did the maths. He's like, oh, I'll never pay it off. So what he did is he decided to invest in personal development, on becoming a better version of who he was, on learning more. And by learning more and becoming more, what happened over time is that he earned more. His mindset changed, his identity changed. And as his mindset grew and his identity grew, and his skill set grew, he was able to find ways of actually starting other business ventures and moving things around. And he paid off that $1 million debt and continued to actually create more business ventures that earned him even more money in the future. And what he learned is that your impact, your income is going to grow in direct proportion to how much it is that you grow. And the challenges that come, the problems that come, the adversity that you face is actually fuel that can help you to grow if you use it. So if you can reframe how you look at challenges and say, these things aren't there to stop you, they're not there to limit you, they're actually there for you to tap into a part of you that's not being fully utilized and to go to a higher level so that you can not just overcome that challenge that's in front of you, but you can overcome the one that's going to come after that, and not just overcome it, but become more in the process so that you grow and you become, your identity becomes more, it becomes a higher version of what you currently are. And I'm sure you've come across situations where someone's income or their money just grows at a bigger rate than their identity. Like let's take a lotto winner. Someone wins the lottery as an example. Here they've got all this money, but their identity, they haven't grown in proportion to the money that they received. And as a result, that's when things like self-sabotage start to kick in. You start to spend this money and you start to do things that are out of character because there's a mismatch between those two. You always want to use the problems that you're facing as an opportunity for you to grow so that you can become more. And as you become more, you're able to do more. And I'm just using money because that's something that can be easily measured. But it's not just limited to money, just even your impact in terms of your kids, your community, your family, your team, all these things become more. Your impact in your relationship with yourself, it becomes deeper when you're able to use the challenge as an opportunity to take yourself to the next level. So remember that you grow bigger, not in spite of the challenge, but because of it. You using the challenge as an opportunity to grow, not just saying, I'm going to find a way around this thing, not just find a way around it, but use that thing as motivation to grow. And the sixth winning belief is, I believe in what I sell and the value that I provide. If you don't believe in it, then nobody else will. That's the truth of the matter. If you don't believe in it, then no one else is going to believe in it. Think about it. You must be lit up in order to light other people up. It's like you must be a flame that is burning brightly in order for other people to come and light their flames on you. So if you're selling shampoo, well, you better make sure that you're using that shampoo, isn't it? Better make sure that that's your daily shampoo, that you won't shut up about the shampoo and how great it is. If there's a particular diet or product that you're using or that you're selling, make sure that you're using it. Make sure that you're embodying the values of the product that you're selling. So if you don't believe in what you're selling, I mean, if you go and try and get something from someone and they are selling a product, but they themselves are not using the product, how is it that they can actually sell this thing to you if they themselves don't believe in it? You want to be the number one customer of your product or your offer or your service. You want to be a walking example of that. And that doesn't mean by any means that you have to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. Perfection is the lowest standard because it can't be reached. You just want to make sure that you're at least walking the path. And another thing to also remember, this is completely unrelated, but think about this. You want to be 10 steps ahead of your potential client or the potential buyer of your product or service. You don't have to be at the top of the mountain. You just have to be ahead of them so that you can guide them as far as you've gone. So that means that if you're selling, for example, a weight loss product, you don't have to have lost all the weight and have a six-pack and 5% body fat. You just have to have lost some weight and continuing to stay on that path so that you can bring other people along. Because that's actually quite inspiring where, it's not completion that actually motivates people. It's progress. Progress is the biggest motivator. And if you can show that I'm making progress with this thing, or I'm using this thing and these are the changes that I've made, I'm not perfect, I'm not at 100% yet, but I've come so much further than where I used to be. That is an inspiring story and people want that. It's not perfection that inspires people because perfection can actually turn people off. If you're trying to lose weight and you come across a person and they've got this six-pack, you can tell yourself a whole bunch of stories about, they must have been born like that, or they're using steroids, whatever the case may be. But if you can see a person's before and the after is not perfect, but you can clearly see that difference, that's inspiring. And you want to give people that opportunity. So you want to believe in what it is that you sell and the value that you provide. And one way of actually going about doing this, a very easy way, is you get a piece of paper and you write out 50 benefits of using your product or service. So you write out 50 benefits, because there should be that many. And think deeply, think widely. Don't just think in terms of the immediate benefits. What are the benefits going to be like for your relationships, your energy, your finances? How much is it going to save you? Your energy, your focus, your sense of calm, your sense of peace of mind, all those things. Think widely. What are the benefits of using your product or your service? And you want to know these benefits in your sleep. You must be able to spit them out forwards and backwards. You want to fall in love with them, because if you fall in love with those benefits, other people will fall in love with them as well. So believe in what it is that you sell and the value that you provide. And the seventh winning belief here is I focus on adding massive value. I go the extra mile and give beyond what is expected. If you constantly give more than you expect to receive, then you always have more than you expect. If you can find ways of adding more value than what you ask for in return, you always have something coming in return. Think about it on a scale of 1 to 10. If you add a sense of value, with 0 being nothing and 10 being everything, if you go into a situation and you give people a 10 or a 12, let's say go off the scale in terms of value, and what you ask for in return is a 5, it's a no-brainer because what you've given them is so much more greater than what you're asking for. It's a clear win for them. So always find ways of adding way more value than go the extra mile, go beyond what people expect. How can you do this thing faster, easier, cheaper, more efficiently for your customers? How can you wow them? How can you blow their socks off? And there's a dozen different ways of doing this. Just asking yourself the question and thinking about it, and maybe every day what you can do is write a list of 5 different things, 5 different ways you can add value to your customers, and do that every day for a month. At the end of the month, you have 150 different ways of adding value. And then all you have to just do is just pick about 5 or 10 of those and implement them. So find ways of adding more value, and you'll never be at a loss for income, for clients, for raving fans. Always focus on being a giver and not a taker. Another thing to consider is that you will be knocked around, or it might feel like you're being knocked around at times. And this is a very common thing. When you looked at the winning beliefs, we looked at how problems are not just something that happens, but it's something that's also necessary. And something to take into consideration when it feels like the odds are against you, when it feels like you're out of your depth, you're out of your league, is that problems are an opportunity. The size of your problem is literally the size of your opportunity. Because think of it this way, how do you add value? How do you add value? The way that you add value is by solving a problem. When the problem is resolved, you've added value. So we add value by solving a problem. What is a big problem then? A big problem is just an opportunity to add massive value. Look, I understand it might feel uncomfortable. It can create confusion within our minds and can cause fear and anxiety and uncertainty. But the conditions that challenge us can lead to our greatest growth. And when we feel fear in these situations, it's necessary to remember that fear is a common feeling, but as far as it being a strategy to actually move forward, it is a weak long-term strategy. It means that you can't be feeling fear day to day, and using that as a guide to make your decisions, because any decision that you make out of fear, even if it's the right decision, is not going to be the best decision. You're not going to fully tap into your potential. So it's not whether or not you'll face problems. The question is what you'll do with them, what you'll do with it. I love the story of a man who wants to become a dustbin collector. This is an old story, and he can't read or write. And he goes to fill out a job application to become a dustbin collector. And because he can't read or write, he can't actually fill the application out, and he's rejected for the job. And he's distraught and he's quite upset about this. And after some time, he decides to just start a little flower stall where he's selling roses and daisies and different types of flowers. And he finds that he's actually doing quite well in this business. And after some time, he opens another stall and his business begins to thrive. And next thing you know, some years down the line, He's got many different flower boutiques across the country and is a very, very wealthy man. And the reporter, hearing about his story, about how wealthy he is, tracks him down and wants to figure out how he became so successful. And the reporter sends him a questionnaire to fill out, just his background and a bunch of questions for like a pre-interview type of thing. And the man's assistant responds back that he can't fill out the questionnaire because he can't read or write. And the reporter's just blown away by this. Like, how is it that this man is so successful and he can't read or write? So he tracks the man down and he just can't contain himself anymore. And he's like, look how successful you are. I mean, you've got all these businesses and you've got all this wealth. Can you imagine just for a second how much more successful you'd have become if you could read or write? Can you imagine what could have become of you if you could read or write? And the businessman stops, pauses for a second and responds, yeah, I know what would have become of me if I could read or write. I would have become a dustbin collector. And I mean, it's a bit of a funny story, but think about it. Those very conditions that might look like they're a limitation for us might be setting us up for a far, far better situation and opportunity further down the line. We just can't see it. And I'm not saying that this is always going to be the case, but I'm saying that if you adopt that belief of there's an opportunity within every problem, it helps you to then fully utilize all the resourcefulness within you to make it that way. I mean, this is a very similar story as the founder of WhatsApp. He applied to become an employee of Facebook years ago, and Facebook rejected him. And he went and he created his own software company, which became WhatsApp. And WhatsApp was bought by Facebook for $19 billion, making the founder a multi-billionaire. So, I mean, there's so many of these stories of something that looked like a rejection, it looked like a roadblock, it looked like the end. And because people treated that limitation as an opportunity, something far, far much better, bigger and greater came out of that. So every setback contains within it a greater opportunity. Nothing is good or bad. It might feel that way, but remember that it's our perceptions that might color something as good or bad. And since it's our perception that controls it, we can control our perception and change it. So train yourself to respond, not to react to the problems that inevitably arise, because they're not there to limit you, they're there to help you to become. So how do we do this? The first thing is you see things as they are, see it as it is, but don't see it worse than it is. So look at the reality of the situation, but don't magnify it and blow it out of proportion, because then that just steps you back into fear. And the second simple thing that you do is you see it better than it is. Look beyond the problem. Look beyond the current limitation. See into the future and say, how could this thing be better? And also look at the problem and say, how could I use this? What hidden benefit could there be in this? What lesson could I draw out of this that can help me to become better? And the final thing that you do is you make it how you want it to be. You take that vision and you start taking steps right here, right now, to try and close that gap and use that problem as fuel. And since we've mentioned fear, let's look at fighting fear. Let's look at overcoming fear. And a very common fear that people have is what others think of them, the fear of what others think. And the truth of the matter is that nobody cares. I know it sounds a little bit harsh, but it's really the truth. Nobody cares. There's this thing called the 18, 40, and 60 rule, where at 18 years old, we are concerned about what others think about us. And then when you reach the age of 40, we don't care what others think about us. And by the time you reach the age of 60, we look back and realize that nobody was thinking about us all along. It's just this thing we'd created in our heads. Because the truth is that people are focused on their own issues, their own challenges. They're too concerned with those things to be worried about what it is that you're doing. And when they're not focused on those issues, do you really want to know what they're thinking about? When they're not, they're thinking about what you're thinking about them. It's this endless cycle. So the truth of the matter is that people do care, and I'm sure your family, your friends, your community, your potential clients, they do care, but on the whole, nobody cares to that extent, that to the extent of making it the primary concern of their lives. I mean, I always think of Prince's death, and Prince, the artist, the musician, he made this huge impact, influenced so many different musicians, and made this huge impact in the world of music. And when he passed away, what happened? People tweeted about it, they made posts, there were all these heartfelt mentions, and it trended for a while. And after a few days, what happened? People went back to their lives. I'm not looking down on his memory or the impact that he made or anything like that. I'm just saying, look at this guy who made this huge change in music, this huge impact, and he passes away. We talk about it for a couple of days, and then the next day it's as if nothing ever happened. Now, I'm not saying that you're not on Prince's level yet or anything of that nature, but what I am saying is that people have their own lives, they have their own issues, and you're not Prince, and not looking down on anything that you're trying to do. Don't be so fixated on what other people think, because the truth of the matter is that A, we don't know what it is that they're thinking, and B, it doesn't matter, because chances are they're not thinking about you. So don't be so fixated on that. Another way of navigating fear is, this is from the brilliant book called Mindset by Carol Dweck, where she looks at a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And if you haven't had a chance to read this book or get a summary or watch the TED Talk, I strongly suggest that you do. And in it, she talks about how these two mindsets that influence the success that we have in life. The first mindset is that of a fixed mindset. And a fixed mindset is basically looking at your talent as being limited, looking at resources around you as being limited. And the things that you say to yourself are, I am either good at this thing or I'm not. My potential, my abilities are predetermined. What is there is all that is there. It's looking at things with a very limited mindset. And a growth mindset is focused on effort and learning. And the more effort you put into something, the more you apply yourself, the better that you get. It's basically that neuroplasticity of the brain, that the more effort and change and application you have or do on something, the more the brain rewires itself to learn new skills and become better at that. So how do you build this growth mindset? The first thing is just to be tenacious. Keep going. Whatever it is that you're doing, don't give up. Keep at it, because the more effort you apply, the more you stick at it, the better you will become. And the second thing you can do to build this growth mindset is use one simple word, and that is yet. Yet. So rather than saying, I can't do this thing, you say, I can't do it yet. I haven't succeeded yet. I haven't mastered this area yet. By using the word yet, you're presupposing that at some stage in the future, you're going to master this thing. You're going to accomplish this goal. It's just that you haven't done that yet. You're in the process of doing it. So you've, in a sense, set a target for yourself that I can do this thing. I just haven't gotten to the point where I can do it successfully, but I'm learning, I'm growing. So you keep doing what it is that you're doing. Don't give up, and use that word yet. And this is a nice way of challenging any kind of negative thinking or any criticism that people can come up with when they're criticizing what it is that you're doing. Oh, you've been doing this thing for 3 months. And you say, yeah, I'm not going to quit. I'm in this thing for the long haul because I know the impact. I know the mission that I have and the change that's going to make in people's lives as a result of that. I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep at it. And yes, I haven't mastered it yet, but you watch me, I want to keep at this thing and I will become better at it. Another way to fight fear is just to simply build courage. Now, remember, courage doesn't mean that you're not feeling fear. It just means that you have a changed relationship with fear. And one way of reframing what fear is simply a reminder that it doesn't mean that anything is wrong. It's just a sign that you're on the right track. It's a sign that you're doing something different. It's a sign that you are on uncharted territory. And that's a good thing. It means you're taking a risk, you're putting yourself out there, you're doing something different, and you're going to make an impact as a result of that. Another thing to do when you're building courage is to feel the fear and do it anyway. Remember that the fear doesn't leave. It's just that the more you do this thing, the more you practice, the more speeches that you give, the more you put yourself out there, the more risks that you take, you as an individual get stronger, you become better, you learn more skills. Now you can still feel the fear, but you can do that thing because you've become more as a person. So feel the fear and do it anyway. And the third thing to remember with fear is that the anticipation is 100 times worse than the actual event. Now, I've had the privilege to go skydiving and bungee jumping, and I'll tell you, the picture that you have of those events, the anticipation of what's going to happen is way, way more intense than the actual event itself. You know, when you're sitting in that plane and the doors open, you can hear the wind rushing, you can hear the buzz of the propellers, and you can actually just look outside and see the curvature of the earth, and everything's just these little tiny boxes and green shrubbery below you. It's crazy. Like, what could possibly happen? My goodness, I'm going to die. The parachute's not going to open. Oh, all these stories just pop up in your head. But once you take that leap, you only feel fear for about 3, maybe 4 or 5 seconds, and you realize nothing's going to actually happen. If it was going to happen, it would have happened, and it didn't. And you're able to then just relax into the event. The most weird thing is that the descent, the free fall, is actually a very calm. I mean, it's still exciting, but it's just this calm rush. And from that experience, it just told me that we create these experiences, we create these pictures in our mind. We make these stories up of what things are going to be like. And these stories, because they're so intense, then stop us from doing certain things. When in reality, if we just put those stories aside and did the thing, you realize that, my goodness, I was making this up in my head. That's not how it is. You know, when you're about to give a speech, the scariest part of giving a speech is what? Saying yes, right? Saying yes to doing the actual speech. And then the second scariest part is when you're walking up to the podium and your palms are sweaty, you know, your voice starts to shake a bit. But once you actually relax into that speech, you realize that the audience is not running away. No one's standing up and, you know, throwing a spear in your direction. And the picture that you've created is actually way worse than the actual event. So remember that the anticipation is worse than the event. That's not to say that you won't have challenges and that you won't make mistakes and have failures along the way. What I am saying is that those failures, mistakes, and challenges are probably way, way less and intense than you think they will be in reality. And another thing to remember when you're building courage is that you don't need courage for the next 20 years. You don't need courage for the next 6 months. You don't need courage for, you know, the next week. You only need courage for the next moment. And then you'll need courage for the moment after that, but that moment will take care of itself. All you need is 20 seconds of courage, because that's all it takes. 20 seconds. 20 seconds of courage to pick up the phone. 20 seconds of courage to write a post on Instagram that's inspiring, or maybe it's a vulnerable post. You know, 20 seconds of courage to try something new. 20 seconds of courage to give that speech, to say yes to that opportunity, to go ask the person out on the date. All you need is 20 seconds of courage, and the rest will take care of itself. So don't think that you need to have this massive confidence and just this unstoppable force, and that's all well and good. But if you don't feel that way yet, See what I did there? All you just need to do is just have 20 seconds of courage, and the rest will take care of itself. And on a slightly more practical level in terms of fighting fear, is sometimes fear comes about from overwhelm. We're trying to do too much too soon, and we don't know where to start or the next step to take. What you can do in this regard is take whatever tasks you have, whatever goals you have, and break them down into an extremely, extremely small step. Make a micro goal of that goal. So you take the goal and say, how can I accomplish this thing in the next 5 minutes? Not the whole goal, but just an aspect of that goal. And you work on those next 5 minutes. And then after those 5 minutes, have another 5-minute goal, another 5-minute goal, another 5-minute goal. And you just stack up these little tiny, tiny micro wins throughout the day. And that'll build your confidence up, because you can look back and say, oh, wow, you know, rather than saying I'm going to sit down and study for the next 3 hours, you just say I'm going to study for 5 minutes, 5 minutes of focused attention. And thereafter, at the end of those 5 minutes, you do another 5 minutes. After 12 of those, that's an hour. You know, you just keep slowly stacking these things up, because 5 minutes is doable. I mean, who can't do 5 minutes? But the thing is, when you try and do this huge, huge chunk at once, you get overwhelmed. And as a result of overwhelm, you don't do anything at all. Those micro goals will help you to build momentum. They'll help you to build up your confidence. They'll help you to move in a new direction. And when you start doing that, your courage will start to grow, and you feel significantly less overwhelmed, less anxious, and you're moving in a new direction. You're growing stronger. So remember that fear is a common thing. Everybody feels it. It's how we deal with the fear that then determines what happens. Are you going to let this thing stump you? Are you going to use it as fuel to move yourself up to the next level? All right, so we've looked at the winning beliefs of building a strong, unbeatable mindset, and we've looked at how to overcome fear. Now let's look at some winning behaviors, things that we can actually do to help reinforce that mindset. And the first winning behavior is to act as if. Now, I'm sure you've come across the term fake it till you make it, but here it's not about faking it. It's more about acting like it until you become it. So you're not pretending to be something you're not. You're actually embodying what it is. You're embodying being your ideal self. You're stepping into your best self and showing up the way that your best self would. And how would your best self show up? What would you say to yourself? How would you walk? How would you talk? How would you stand? What things would you focus on? How would others describe you if you were not just pretending to be something, but you're actually embodying it, stepping into it, and actually being that thing? So you're embodying it, and when you embody it, you become it. So there's this principle of be, do, and have. People focus on the have, on the doing something. But you know, if you're doing something from the wrong mindset, it actually messes up your actions. So by being something, we can then embody those values, embody the principles, embody the identity of our best selves. And from that place, we'll take the best actions, that's the do, and then you can have the results that it is that we want. So you embody it, have the right actions, and you get the right results. I'm sure you've been in a situation, or you know of someone who is taking the right action, they're doing the right thing, but in their minds, they don't believe that it's going to work out. They don't believe that it's going to have a successful result. And as a result, they have these very poor results, or they have no results, or they end up self-sabotaging themselves along the way because they're not embodying those values. They don't embody the identity of what it means to be their best selves. So from that place of strength, you'll be able to take the right actions and then have the right results. And another thing here is that you want to also, in a sense, take a risk, move before you feel ready. When you're firing a rifle, there's a principle of, you aim first, and then you make yourself ready, then you fire. Here, just want to make yourself ready, then you fire and you aim afterwards. What do I mean by that? Is you want to take action from your best self, from your inspired self, from that place of strength. And then you can look at the results that you get, and then can correct your aim from the results. So here it's like firing a target, firing a gun, a rifle at a target, and then you can see, oh, okay, I'm off by 5 centimeters to the right. So I'm going to adjust my aim by 5 centimeters, correct it, and then fire again and see if I'm off, and how off am I by, and then you correct, rather than perpetually aiming and aiming and aiming and never actually taking the shot, because you end up getting caught up in this paralysis analysis. So ready, fire, aim. You take the action, look at the result that you have, and then you course correct from that point of the result that you have. Ready, fire, and aim. Now, the second winning behavior that you can also take into account here is keeping score, because simply what gets measured gets managed. Not all the activities that you're going to be carrying out on a day-to-day basis are going to have the same value. Some are going to give you massive results. Some aren't going to give you those massive results. So you want to avoid getting caught up in the process of being busy but not producing any results. You want to hold yourself accountable by tracking your time and your activities. Now, let's look at something called lag measures and lead measures. A lag measure is usually something that's historical. It's already happened. So let's look at weight loss as an example, because this will make a lot of sense. When people are trying to get healthy, they're trying to get fit, they usually track how many kilos they've lost, say, per week or per month. And what does that actually tell you? It just tells you how much you've lost, but you're not actually tracking the behaviors that lead to those actions. So if, for example, you're trying to lose 1 kilogram by the end of the week, and at the end of the week, you've lost 800 grams instead of 1 kilogram, what does that tell you? It tells you that you've lost 800 grams, but it doesn't tell you anything else other than that. And this 800 grams is in the past. It's something that's already happened. You can't really do anything about it right now. Whereas a lead, that's called a lag measure. You're looking at something that's in the past. A lead measure are measuring actions that allow you to achieve the goal. You're measuring the actions that allow you to achieve the goal. So it's more predictive. It's the more that you do it, the more you engage in those actions, the greater the chances of success. So a lead measure, using the weight loss example, will be looking at things like tracking how much sleep you're getting, tracking how much you're exercising, tracking your calories on a day-to-day basis. Because the more you track those things, the likelier it is that you're going to lose the weight. So the same thing in terms of what you want to do in your business. You want to track those lead measures. You want to track the things that are predictive, that are going to lead to the inevitable success. And you're going to have your own key metrics, because everybody there's got a different business. You've got your different niche. So I can't tell you these are the specific behaviors for you. But what I can do is give you a guideline so that you can have a setup that will allow you to have some sort of framework to allow you to track this. So the key metrics are simply this. You state your top 3 goals and make it 3 goals. Don't make it 10 goals, 20 goals. Just make 3 goals, set 3 goals, because one goal is you're putting all your eggs in one basket. But if you've got anything more than 3 goals, you've got no goals, because your attention is just going to be diverted in different directions. So set 3 goals. And then for each goal, I want you to put down 1 or 2 habits, lead measures, that will allow you to achieve that goal. Just 1 or 2 per goal. And then all you're doing from that point onwards is tracking them daily. So you've got your 3 goals, you've got your key habits, your lead measures, 1 or 2 per goal, and then you track those every day. You can make a simple PowerPoint spreadsheet, or you can just get a piece of paper, list those habits, make a little table, and every day you're putting a tick on those goals. The more you engage in those actions, the likelier it is that you're going to actually achieve your goals. Now, the next winning behavior is feeding your mind regularly. Ideally, you want to feed your mind every single day, at least 30 minutes at the very minimum, up to an hour. And here you're just going to be reading watching and listening to something that's either inspirational or educational, that's going to feed your spirit, that's going to keep you inspired, that's going to give you that sense of purpose, that's going to lift you up when you're getting down, that's going to give you examples of people who have done what it is that you're doing and can guide you through those uncharted waters. So you want to read things that are not just inspiring, but things that are also educational. You're looking at those gaps in your knowledge and saying, what do I need more of? Do I need to learn how to focus more on sales and lead generation? Let me read those. Do I need to work on my finances because I don't know how to budget, or I don't know the difference between an income and expense and profit and cash and all these things? Go and learn those things. The internet is filled with tons and tons of free material. And granted, not all of them are the same. There's nothing that's better than actually committing time and money to something. But in addition to that, just keep reading, keep learning, keep watching. There's tons of podcasts, books, and free resources and webinars that you can tap into. And you want to keep yourself inspired. You want to keep yourself learning every day, because that's what keeps your blade, the blade of your mind, sharp. And finally, you want to look at building confidence. Now, it's 4 simple things that you can do here to build confidence. The first thing here is you want to create a very powerful vision of yourself. You want to create a powerful vision of yourself. And what does that mean? Earlier, I talked about being your best self, embodying your ideal self. So here you're taking that a step further and actually writing out what that looks like. So you want to write out a paragraph, ideally a whole page, describing your best self. How are you acting when you're at your best? What are you doing specifically? What actions are you taking? What kind of goals do you set? What kind of people are you around? What kind of work are you doing? And what's the impact for your customers, your employees, and all those people around you? How do you feel? How do you show up in the world? What's your self-talk like? What kind of beliefs and values do you have? So take the time out, and I encourage you to pause this video right now and write out what that looks like. Write out a powerful vision of being your best self. Your best self is not based on things happening on the outside world and the world being perfect and then you feeling good about that. It's about you being your best self first, and then showing up into the world and effecting the change, making the world, or at least your world, your circle of influence, how you want it to be. So take the time out right now, pause the video, and write a powerful vision of yourself. Now, I trust that you actually took the time to do that. The second thing that you can do is make a victory log of all your past accomplishments. So here, I just want to keep it with you. Make a list, ideally no less than 20 things of all your past accomplishments, big and small. It doesn't matter what other people think about them, whether or not they think they're significant or insignificant. All that matters is that it's significant to you. It doesn't matter if in the 3rd grade you got the 2nd best prize for spelling, or whatever the case may be. Someone gave you a look and you smile back at them. If that's meaningful to you, put it down. Make a list of all those things and be willing to go deep. Don't just look at the surface or recent things. Look back in your past, things that people have complimented you on, or any past victories that you might have had that you might have forgotten about because it was so long ago. And don't just look at professional things. Be willing to go wide. There's some failures that we've even experienced that can actually be blessings in disguise. Like, oh man, I had my heart broken, and as a result of that, I learned so much about myself, and I wouldn't be who I am today if that hadn't happened. That can be a victory. So be willing to look at both good and bad things and look widely and really go deep. And the beauty of that is that you can constantly add to this list. Anytime anything happens, anytime anything good happens, just add it down, carry this list with you on your phone, on paper, wherever you go. And you can frequently refer to it, and that will boost your confidence of, wow, look, I've done all these things. I've gone through all these challenges and I've overcome them. It means that no matter what's going to happen in the future, I can face that. Another idea in building confidence is you can only control one thing, and that is yourself. In life, there will always be things that we can control, and things that we cannot control. Overwhelm comes when we mix the two up and try and control things that we cannot, and we ignore the things that we can control. You know, the more you focus on what you can control, the stronger your ability to deal with things becomes. And you will be able to influence the things that are outside of your control. You know, many things we can control. There are many things we can control, but the crux of it is this. What's always under our control is our thoughts, our actions, and our behaviors. So our thoughts, you can even put your words there. Our words are our habits of thought, right? Our actions, the things that we choose to actually do, and behaviors, the repeated thoughts and actions with over time that becomes the behavior. So our thoughts, our actions, and our behaviors are the only things that we can control. And the good thing is that that's the only thing that you ever really need to control. Nothing else is under your control. At best, it's under your influence, but certainly not 100% control. And the stronger, the more you do this, the stronger your ability becomes, the stronger your capability becomes. So remember, you can only control yourself. You don't know what other people are thinking. You don't have to know what other people are thinking. What other people are thinking or doing doesn't matter. Focus on being your best self. And finally, another way to build confidence is just to challenge any negative self-talk that comes up. When you set yourself a goal, you're going to do this thing, and then this self-talk comes up of, oh, who are you to set such a goal? It's not going to work out. It will work out for other people, but not for you. All those type of limiting beliefs that pop out. Don't just let that thing sit in your mind. Challenge it. Remember, you don't have to believe everything you think. A thought is just a thought. It's our emotions that give power to those thoughts. So if you disagree with it, challenge it, call it out, and look at wider options and say, what else could this mean? What else could this mean? That's a great question to ask yourself whenever you've got negative self-talk. Ask yourself, what else could this mean? What else could be the reason this is happening? And look for an empowering reason. Don't just look for another negative reason. So say, what else could this mean? It might mean that, you know, God, the universe, life is challenging me to go to another level, and there's a hidden blessing within this thing. You know, what else could this mean? So many different meanings you can give things, but challenge that negative self-talk. Don't just let it live in your mind rent-free. Kick it out and put in a tenant that's going to empower you and help you to be your best self. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you on the next module, which is the niche module, how to identify your niche, your offer, and your gift. And I hope that you practice and embody everything that you've learned today and take it to the next level.